What is up, my Shadowverse soldiers, and welcome back to another Shadowverse Evolved video. Alright, soldiers, so we are finally here with the last main sets of the year. So we had sets 12 and 13, and we're going to be talking about Forestcaft. Alright, soldiers, so you voted, and I'm going to listen. So we're going to be doing both sets in one video. So we're going to go ahead and start with set 12, World Reaver's Descent. Alright, and starting with our first card, we have Awakened Gaia. So it's 11 cost 5/5, and this card costs 5 less to play for every 5 Natura cards in your cemetery, but when it comes into play, you select an enemy, follow in the field, and destroy it. Alright, soldiers, so you are seeing it in the flesh. We have some Natura support, and I'm glad to see it have some good support. So, of course, for this, static effect of having the reducing cost is just going to be constant, since we're going to be using Natirian Great Trees to draw a card and discard a card, filter our hand out, and keep throwing Natura cards into the cemetery, of course, the ones that we don't need, so we can keep reducing the cost of this card. So eventually, if you have 10 Natura cards in Cemetery, this can be a 1 cost 5/5 that just selects an enemy following field to destroy. Alrighty, next up we have Elf Queen of Abundant Life. So she's a 2 cost 1/2. You can evolve her for 1, but when she comes into play, Fanfare, if you have combo 3, you can draw a card. Alright, so it looks like combo is going to have a nice little piece here to being able to play a 2 cost follower which draws a card, which is honestly just amazing in my opinion. And then being able to evolve to either trade into a follower or have its on evolve effects be even stronger. Alright, so looking at Elf Queen Evolve, so she turns into a 2/3, but on Evolve you select up to 2 enemy followers on the field and then deal 2 damage divided between them. But if you have combo 3, you can deal 4 damage instead. Alright, so I kind of like this 2 cost card. It has this nice multitude of abilities. So not only does it hit the combo 3 and when you play it to draw a card, but if you're on combo 3, you're able to evolve this follower and then deal 4 damage divided between 2 followers, which you can either crash into Elf Queen for the rest of, or you can use another follower's effects on combo 3 maybe to help that out. Alrighty, next up we have Carnbuckle Immortal Jewel. So it's a 4 cost 2/2. You can evolve it for 2, but when it comes into play, you put a Carnbuckle Sparkle token into your EX area. Alrighty, looking at what a Carnbuckle Sparkle is, so it's a 2 cost token spell. You can choose one of the following. You can either 1, select a follower on the field and return it to its owner's hand, or you can 2, give your leader +4 defense, or you can draw 2 cards. Alright, so it's looking like some Beasts got some support here, so I love Beast support. Even though I haven't really talked about it too much on the channel, I really do like what it likes to do. Having these low-cost Beast cards that are either generating you some value in some sort of way. So the Carnbuckle Sparkle, unfortunately, is not free, but hopefully on the Evolve it might be free. You're able to select a follower and return it back to hand for some removal. You can heal your leader for some defense back, or you can draw 2 cards to value in hand size. Alrighty, and then looking at the Carnbuckle Evo, so it turns into a 4/4, and on Evolve you put a Carnbuckle's token into your EX area, and then you give each Carnbuckle Sparkle token in your EX area. This card costs 2 less to play. Alright, so it looks like this is going to be a fat turn for whatever deck you're going to be putting it in. So not only on the unevolve are you going to get a Sparkle in the EX area, but you get to evolve and get another one. And then on top of that, both those cards are going to be free. So you can either draw 4 cards if you want to, or if you can heal 8 if you want to, or if you need to do some removal and then, mix and match any of the abilities. You can only choose one, but I'm liking that you're able to do both in one way. Alright, but moving on, we have Irene Harvest Defender. So she's a 6 cost 6/6. She has Rush and Assail, and this follower doesn't take damage during your turn. She also has a strike ability to draw a card and then refresh this follower, and then you perform this ability only once per turn. Alright, so I don't know about you soldiers, but I really do like this card. Now, I don't know if it's going to be in every build for Forestcraft, but I do really like the aspect of removal that it has. So those pesky followers that are staying reserved are going to be swung into. We're not going to take damage into this follower, so our opponent's going to have to really find a way to get this follower off the field. And if they don't have the hard removal, then, this is going to be very awkward. But this strike ability is amazing to being able to take care of 2 followers and then being able to draw a card. Alrighty, next up we have Intertwined Resolve. So it's a 1 cost spell card. You can choose one of the following. You can either 1, put a Natura card on your field into the EX area, then you can select an enemy following the field and then deal it 3 damage, or you can 2, summon 2 fairy tokens. Alright, soldiers, so I'm not going to lie to you, I'm already a bit of a sucker for this card. So you get to summon 2 fairy tokens for 1 on the field, and then you get to do Corrosive Thorns to go ahead and engage them to make sure you can deal 3 damage to enemy followers while pinging the enemy leader for 1. I really like that ability for that secondary ability. But however, for the first part of the effect, if you are running it in the Natura deck, you can spend 1 to go ahead and move that Natura card into the EX area to deal a follower 3 damage in the early game. Alright, next up we have Forest Defender. So it's a 4 cost 3/4. You can evolve it for 1, and whenever another hunter follower on your field attacks, you can select an enemy follower on the field and then deal it 3 damage. Alright, so if I'm correct, most of the hunter deck is that you're kind of like negging followers until they can't be really traded into, or they can't really do any damage to our hunter followers. And the hunter deck is constantly playing cards that are swinging the same turn that they're played, so it's a little bit harder for your opponent to remove your cards. But the fact that you have a card that's a 4 cost that you're able to play off of the Hunter's effects, and then as long as this is a card that has been played before you start swinging, you can start pinging the enemy board for damage. Alright, but moving on into the Forest Defender evolve, so he turns into a 4/5 and he still has that static ability of whenever another Hunter follower attacks, you can select the enemy follower on the field and deal it 3 damage. But on evolve, you look at the top 4 cards of your deck, and from among them, you put a Hunter follower that costs 3 or less onto your field, and you put the remaining cards at the bottom of your deck in any order. Alright, so now this evolve is starting to look like what Hunter Forest is wanting to do. So you're going to be cheating out those cheap Hunter followers that are going to be able to swing the very same turn that they're played. And with, I'm pretty sure Shamu Shama is like a Hunter card too. I'm pretty sure I said their name right. I'm sorry, I haven't really kept up with those cards from the most recent set for Forest at least. But you're able to play those Hunter cards, and those cards have Storm. And if you have like combo 3, like Shamu Shama says, you know, you can buff up this follower and have some big Storm damage. Or you can play another, 3 or less Hunter follower that's able to get some value on the field. Alright, and next up we have Windfall Fae. So she's a 1 cost 2/2, and during your turn, whenever you play a card, if it's the third card you played this turn, you give your leader +1 defense, and then if it's the 5th card, you can draw a card. Alright, so we have a little baby Anastasia here. So this card really does go pretty well with that card. So you do get to play Anastasia, and then you get to recover those play points. You get to use this as one of the cards that you do play. And then when you get into the 3rd and 5th cards that you play, you get those big buffs and then big things happening to your board and to your leader and to your hand size now when you have Windfall Fae out. Alrighty, next up we have Arya's Whirlwind, so it's a 4 cost spell, and if there's a Pixie/Princess follower in your EX area, this card costs 1 less to play. You can select a Pixie token follower on your field and then deal damage to each enemy follower on the field equal to the attack power of the selected follower. Alright, so honestly how I'm seeing this work is you already have a buffed Pixie token on the field, that's probably going to be a Fairy Wisp, while you also have like maybe an Elven Princess Mage or something like that, or maybe just a Pixie follower to make this cost 3, but essentially it seems like you're going to have a very big like buff Fairy Wisp on the field to be able to clear the board out for at least 3 or maybe 4 if you have to play it raw. Alrighty, next up we have Forest Hatcheteer, so it's a 3 cost 3/3. You can evolve it for 4, but he has Rush, and then he also has the Strike ability to select the enemy follower on the field and then deal it 2 damage. Alright, so the first thing I am going to say is this evolve ability is super expensive, like goodness gracious, so a total of 7 to evolve this follower. But naturally his follower having Rush and being able to in the early game take care of an enemy follower that has like 2 defense or less is pretty good, while also trading into another follower if you don't manage to play this in the late game. Alright, so we're looking at the Hatcheteer evolve, so he turns into a 6/6, and then he has a strike ability to select the enemy follower on the field and then destroy it and then deal 3 damage to its leader. Alright, so I like how these bronze cards can really be used in multiple scenarios, so not only in the early game you can just spend 3 if you manage to spend 3 for it to go ahead and trade into another follower while also taking care of 2. In the late game, if you have 7 play points and you need to go ahead and hard remove something while doing some burn damage to the enemy leader, you have that here too. Alright, next up we have Springleaf Sprite, so it's a 1 cost 1/2, and when this card leaves your field, you may put a Natirian Great Tree token into your EX area. Then when it comes to play Fanfare, you put a Natirian Great Tree token into your EX area. Alright, so the new Natirian Great Tree spawner just come out, so not only do you get to play this card and get 1 tree in the EX area, but you get another one for bouncing it if you use Nature's Guidance or something like that, and then you have 2, and then if you want to play it again on turn 2, you can go ahead and have a total of 3 in your EX area. Alright, and then we have Elven Pikeman, which is a 2 cost 2/3 with Storm. Alright, so a Hunter card that's low to the ground that's able to swing as soon as it's played, so it's doing what Hunter really wants to do. Alrighty, next up we have Fairy Officer, so she has a 4 cost 3/4. When she comes into play, you put 2 fairy tokens into your EX area, then you select an enemy follower on the field and then deal damage equal to the number of fairy tokens in your EX area. Alright, so I know this card is going to be paired wonderfully with Fairy Circle since you're going to be putting a whole bunch of fairy tokens into your EX area, and then naturally just being able to deal just 2 damage to a follower is alright. But of course, when you get into turn 4, you should have like a EX area full of fairies if you're going to be playing the fairy tokens spam deck. Alright, and lastly we have Fairy Mimir, so it's a 1 cost amulet. When it comes into play, you look at the top 3 cards of your deck. You may reveal a pixie card from among them and add it to your hand, with the rest of the bottom of your deck in any order. You can also activate to engage this card and then bury this card to give your leader +1 defense. You can activate only if there are at least 3 pixie followers in your EX area. Alright, so I'm liking all of this pixie support. So as a fairy token spam player, I'm really enjoying the fact that this can really be procced on turn 1. Get you a card that you might need off the top 3. How I have mine built, it just searches the deck a whole bunch. So being able to get a pixie card is nice, but you do have to realize like there are a lot of elves in the deck. So you do have to be mindful of that when building the deck if you want to run this card. So being able to look at the top 3 to maybe getting a huge pixie card will be very important. And on top of that, if you manage to hit Fairy Circle on the next turn, you can go ahead and proc this to bury the card and heal for 1. Alrighty, and then we have Elf Queen Abundant Life. So this is going to be the UR for set 12, and we have a couple SPs for sets 12 and 13, I believe. So for set 12, we do have the Abundant Life Elf, if you are going to be looking forward to that. Not gonna lie, this card does look very beautiful. I'm very excited to see what it looks like in person because I know her dress is going to be very shiny. Alright, and moving on with the program, so we are going to be transitioning into the cards that are going to be coming out in set 13. So how it's working, that we're going to have combined sets, I don't know how the ratios are going to look. I'm very curious on what things are going to look like next week. So I'm going to be looking forward to picking up my split for Rune, which I'm very excited to talk about the Rune reveals because I currently don't know what all the Rune cards do. But, you know, enough of me glazing about Rune. Let's go ahead and talk about the set 13 Forest cards. Alright, so looking at our first legendary for set 13, so we have Sekka Fatebound Fox, so she's a 1-cost 1/1. When she comes into play, you look at the top 3 cards of your deck. You may reveal a Forestcaft card that costs 2 or less from among them and add it to your hand, and you put the rest at the bottom of your deck in any order. If you reveal a Forestcaft card that costs 2 or less, you discard a card. You can also activate for 3 play points to banish this card and 2 other cards in your cemetery, and then you summon a Sekka 9-fold Blaze from your Evolved deck. Alright, so when making this, I do believe that in set 13, they are going to be moving back into advanced cards. So I hope the advanced cards aren't going to be super hard to get this time around because advanced cards are pretty good. I know everybody really wanted the Zilganio Great World for the decks because it was the late game boss monster that everybody can run. So I'm hoping the Sekka 9-fold Blaze is going to be very attainable and very good for the deck. Alright, so enough wishing, let's figure out what this Sekka 9-fold Blaze does. So she's a 3-cost 3/3. When she comes into play, you can choose one of the following. You can either 1, search your deck for a Resolve of the 9-tailed Fox, reveal it and add it to your hand, and then shuffle your deck. Or you can 2, select a Resolve of the 9-tailed Fox in your cemetery and add it to your hand. Alright, so it looks like this Resolve of the 9-tailed Fox is going to be the card that's going to be rounding the deck up. So not only does this legendary really help us search through our deck on the unevolved side, or the regular side, of course, and then you get into this advance once you spend those extra 3 play points to getting rid of those other 2 cards while getting rid of the legendary, to go ahead and play this card out, have its fanfare go off, and then search out for this Resolve of the 9-tailed Fox card. Alright, and looking at our next legendary, we have Arya Miyamasa Fairy. So she's a 3-cost 3/3, and this card can't be played from the EX area, but you can evolve her for 1, and while this card is on your field or in your EX area, your pixie tokens have Rush. But when she comes into play, you put a fairy token into your EX area, and then when she dies, last words, you may put this card into your EX area. Alright, so this is a pretty nice card to be playing, because on turns 3, it's kind of iffy on what you're doing in fairy tokens. So now we have like a good turn 3 to go ahead and play a card, get a fairy token in the EX area, and whenever we play pixie tokens from forever on, unless this card got banished, our fairy tokens are going to have Rush, so they can now rush into the enemy followers. Alright, and looking at Arya evolved here, so she turns into a 4/4, and this card still has, while this card is on your field or in your EX area, your pixie tokens have Rush. And then her on-evolve ability is search your deck for a pixie amulet that costs 2 or less and then summon it. Then it has the last words, you may put this card into your EX area unevolved. Alright soldiers, so it's looking absolutely amazing for this card slash deck. So when playing this card, you're going to be looking for Titiana's Sanctuary to go ahead and give your pixie tokens +1/+1 whenever they played, and they're also going to have a sale with Rush as long as she's either on the field or in the EX area. Alrighty, next up we have Nelcha Fashion Hazard. So she's a 2-cost 2/2, and you can evolve her for 1, but she has a strike ability to select an enemy follow in the field. And if there are at least 5 Forestcraft spells with different names in your cemetery, you can give it -2/-2, and give this follower +2/+2. Alright, so this honestly looks like a card that might go in Yggdrasil, and I haven't been seeing any decks played in Yggdrasil like often. I don't think I've even seen the deck played at all. But this is going to be quite the unique card to be playing in the deck, just because you're going to have those 5 different Forestcraft spells in the cemetery. You can remove a follower low to the ground if you have it, and then, you know, buff up this follower to turn it into a 4/4. But you have to make sure this follower has Storm or like Rushing Away, so we'll have to look more into the evolve. Alright, and looking at Nelcha Evolve, so she turns to a 3/3, but on Evolve you look at the top 5 cards of your deck, and you may reveal a Forestcraft spell from among them and add it to your hand. You may put a Forestcraft spell from among them into your cemetery, and then they put the rest of the bottom of your deck in any order. She also still has that strike ability to select an enemy following the field, and then give it -2/-2 while giving her +2/+2. Alright, so now for this on-evolve effect, by being able to look at the top 5, any Forestcraft spell that you might need in the situation, you can add it to your hand, and then you can throw one into the cemetery to really help out with the 5 Forestcraft spells in the cemetery, so you can go ahead and get the strike ability off. Alright, so now we have Spinaria, Keeper of the End, so it's a 5-cost 3/3. You can activate to engage this card and then banish 3 cards in your cemetery, and then you can summon a Keen Edge artifact and a Mystic artifact token. Alright, so I don't know who's in charge of the card designs for the Spinaria here, but Spinaria, like, most of her cards are 5-cost cards. which, you know, isn't really a big gripe, but like being able to just play a 5 cost, you know, it's either going to be like Spinario or like Anastasia, but being able to spend 5 to engage this card to get 2 artifact tokens onto the field is pretty nice. Alright, soldiers, but I honestly forgot what both the artifacts did, but I really did want to figure out what this Keen Edge artifact did, and I didn't want to wait for the neutrals when I was going to do them. But it looks like it's a 5 cost 3/4 with Rush and Drain, so being able to just heal for 3. And then of course the Mystic artifact is going to be the 2/3 with Ward that draws a card when it's played. Alright, so figuring out what Resolve of the Nine-Tailed Fox does, so it's a 1-cost spell. So you can choose up to 2 of the following. You can either 1, select a second Ninefold Blaze on your field. If you have at least 9 cards in your banished area, you give it +2/+2 and Storm. Or you can 2, select a follower on your field with Sekka in its name and an enemy follower in the field. Give the follower on your field +2/+2, deal damage to the enemy follower equal to the attack of the follower on your field. Alright, so if you're really late into the game, it seems like the second Ninefold Blaze is going to turn into a really big Storm card. So naturally, second Ninefold Blaze is going to be the 3/3, so giving it the +2/+2 is going to be a 5/5 with Storm, but mind you have to have at least those 9 cards in your banished area for that to work. But naturally, if you want to go for the second ability, it will just give the Sekka the +2/+2, while also doing a total of 5 damage to an enemy follower on the field. But in the late game, you're going to be turning her into a 7/7 with Storm, and then dealing 7 to a follower while swinging for 7, which is pretty amazing. Alright, so next we have Sunbright Elf. So it's a 3-cost 3/3, you can evolve for 1, but when it comes into play, you give each pixie token follower in your EX area +1/+1. Alright, so I really do like this card, even though, like, you know, it gives me Blissed Fairy Dancer vibes. So it looks like this is probably going to be the better card since it evolves and you can trade in instead of, you know, playing Blissed Fairy Dancer on turn 2, buffing up whatever fairies you have into your EX area, which, you know, in this day and age, if you're running Greenbrier Elf like I am myself by banishing pixies that I've already buffed in my EX area to go ahead and look at top 4, I kind of see that as a huge neg, but if you're going for a full pixie line, this is probably going to be more of a card that you're looking at. Alright, so looking at the Sunbright Elf evolve, so turns to a 4/4, but on evolve you summon 2 pixie token followers from your EX area. Alright, soldiers, so I'm seeing the concoction here. So if you're going to be playing Arya before you play Sunbright Elf, so you get to have those pixie tokens with Rush, you get to have those pixies buffed up from Sunbright Elf unevolved Fanfare, and then when you evolve her, you can go ahead and summon them. If Titiana's Sanctuary is out, they have the Assail plus the +1/+1 again for the amulet, and they're going to be swinging in for a lot of damage on one follower. Alright, next up we have Wildwood Warrior, so it's a 5-cost 4/4. When it comes into play, you look at the top 4 cards of your deck. You may reveal a beast follower from among them and add it to your hand, and then you put the rest at the bottom in any order. You can also activate to engage this card, and then you may summon a beast follower that costs 4 or less from your hand. Alright, so I absolutely love to see the 2-for-1 special. So not only do you get to play this card, get a 4/4 on the field, you can look at the top 4, get any beast follower from your deck to your hand, which is pretty amazing. But when you do get to engage this, you get to summon that beast follower that's 4 or less from your hand, which is going to attain you some good value for that turn. Alright, and next up we have Tree of Wonders, which is a 2-cost amulet. When it comes into play, you may put a fairy token into your EX area. You can also activate to engage this card and then bury this card. You draw 2 cards, and you can activate only if there are at least 3 pixie followers in your EX area. Alright, so I know I might have glazed Titiana's Sanctuary a little bit, but Tree of Wonders is absolutely an amazing card, just being able to draw 2 cards, because the one thing about Fairy Token is that you are losing hand size pretty fast. So being able to play out a nice amulet here that puts a Fairy Token into your EX area, while also being able to draw you 2 in the later turns is very amazing. Alright, next up we have Fairy Slugger, so she's a 2-cost 2/2, and you can evolve her for 1. Alright, and looking at the Slugger evolve, so she turns into a 3/3, but on evolve you may put a Fairy Wisp and a Fairy Token into your EX area, and if there are at least 3 Pixie followers in your EX area, you can give your leader +2 defense. Alright, some pretty good tempo value for Fairy. So of course on turn 1 you're obviously going to put out a Fairy Token in some way into your EX area, of course, if you're playing Fairy Tokens, because come on, be serious. If you miss the turn 1 drop, then you know, are you going to even win the game? So going into Fairy Slugger on the very next turn, and then evolving if you manage to get her there, of course, to go ahead and put the Fairy Wisp and the Fairy Token into the EX area, you will have the 3, so you'll be able to heal 2, while also swinging in for 3 damage to trade into another follower. Alrighty, and then we have Edgy Elf, so he's a 3-cost 2/2. He has Storm, but he also has the Strike ability to banish the top 3 cards of your deck, and you give this follower +1/+1. Alright, so it looks like this is going to be the card that's helping out for the Sekka deck. So on turn 3, you can go ahead and then swing for some Storm damage, banish the top 3 cards of your deck. As long as you don't really banish anything that you don't really care about, you can go ahead and make this a 3/3. You already have 3 cards into your banished area, and you need a total of 9 for the full Sekka Nine-Tailed Fox combo to really go off. Alright, and then next up we have Gonzanaya Fox, so it's a 2-cost 2/2, and if you returned a beast follower not named Gonzanaya Fox from your field to hand this turn, this card costs 1 less to play. When it comes into play, you select the enemy follower on the field and deal it 1 damage. And if there's a beast follower that costs at least 5 on your field, you can deal 4 damage instead and give this follower aura. Alright, so I can't explain exactly how the beast deck does work all the way, but I should do a video on it, so I'm going to be looking into that for sets 12 and 13 this come around. But most definitely teams like this Ganaya Fox is going to turn into a 1 cost 2/2, and as long as you have the 5 cost beast follower, this can deal 4 damage to a follower and have aura. Alright, next up we have Tower Root Giant, so it's a 6 cost 5/6 and has Ward, and at the start of your end phase, select the enemy following the field and engage it. It doesn't refresh during its controller's next start phase. Alright, so we know how this game works, so the later in the game it goes, it looks like our opponent is losing options, so being able to stall the game out and keeping a follower that's not really attaining any value in terms of like active effects or that's just there for some good damage, you can keep it engaged. It's kind of like Phylene for a turn, so it gives you a turn to really take care of it. And then you get this big 5/6 ward if you need it to have some defense. Alrighty, and lastly we have Feybolt Archer, so it's a 2 cost 2/1. When it comes into play, you summon a very token, and then look at the top 3 cards of your deck. You may reveal a pixie card from among them and add it to your hand, and you put the rest of the bottom of your deck in any order. Alright, so I like what this card wants to do. I'm glad that it summons a fairy token, and I'm glad it looks at the top 3 for a pixie card. But I don't believe it replaces Greenbrier Elf, just because you're able to look at the top 4 for any Forestcaft card, that being a spell or a follower. So, I mean, Fabled Archer is a nice little bronze card that you can look at for the deck, but I still will say that Greenbrier Elf is still the better card. Alright, so here are our alts for the set. So we have the Sekka card. So, I'm pretty sure this deck is going to be pretty interesting to play, a pilot, or even watch, just because there are a lot of things happening. And I know the edgy elf is probably going to be helping by banishing the top 3 cards, so that's going to be one of the supporting cards that we've already seen so far. So I'm going to be interested in seeing how the other cards are going to be working for this deck, so I'm really interested to see how the final result of this deck comes through. Alright, but getting back into the prettiness of this card, so Ninefold Blades looks absolutely amazing. I'm liking how it's going to be Christmas themed for when we're going to be moving into Christmas come next month. So I really like that for that card. And for the regular Sekka UR, I'm liking how it's, you know, giving her, she's ready to shoot some arrows and stuff like that. So I know these cards are going to look absolutely amazing in person, so I really want to see how it shines and gleams. But alrighty, soldiers, whew, alright, so I'm sorry if you might have gotten tired of hearing my voice. That was pretty stretchy. So we're going to be doing that until, for the rest of the weekend, I'm going to make sure to do every video every day. I'm going to be on top of it, so this isn't going to be an empty promise. We need to finish this, because as of yesterday, I figured out the set comes out next week. I thought it came out the week after next, so I had a little time to really make these videos. But now I'm on top of it. We're doing Forestcraft, and if you soldiers want to vote for the next one, I'll put another poll up, but if it doesn't matter, I'll just go down the list and go with Swordcraft, and then we'll move into Runecraft and Dragoncraft, and, you know, then on there forth. But alright, you soldiers, make sure you are safe in whatever you do tonight and safe whatever you do for the rest of the year. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.
Yeah. TRINN. Just to get you away. What I got to do, what I got to do.